For me, one of the core tenets of Sikhism, that's my religion, my parents' religion, predominantly from Punjab and India, there is a term called seva, S-E-V-A, and it means to give of oneself, self-sacrifice, service to others. I think about my work, whether it was in government and even now in not-for-profits, that service mindset, the civic mindset, taking care of others, making the world a better place, giving back, is really core to who I am. And it's about actively doing work.
This is Associations Thrive, the podcast celebrating successful associations and their leaders. I'm your host, Joanna Pineda, CEO and Chief Troublemaker at Matrix Group International. Listen in as top association executives tell all, revealing the creative and innovative ways they're increasing membership, generating revenue, nurturing engagement, and reimagining their organizations. By the way, if you've launched a new initiative, created new member services, or updated your governance structure and are seeing great results, I want to hear your story, and so do my listeners. I'd love to have you as a guest. Go to podcast.matrixgroup.net and apply to be on Associations Thrive. Now let's dive into this week's show. Today, I'm speaking with Preet Bassi, CEO of the Center for Public Safety Excellence, or CPSE. Preet, welcome to the show.
Joanna, thanks so much for having me. It's really exciting.
Preet, tell us about CPSE.
The Center for Public Safety Excellence, we are 29 years old now. And as an organization, we accredit fire departments, we credential fire professionals. Our vision is to be the catalyst for advancement of the fire and emergency service so that they then can create safe and resilient communities. Our mission, to lead the fire and emergency service to excellence.
So, Preet, why would a fire department get accredited?
We joke that there's 3 reasons departments get accredited. 1, they're awesome and they want people to know it. Going through our process, they can showcase all the great things that they're doing. The second is, unfortunately, something really bad has happened in their community and they need to course correct. This is a framework for them to make sure that they have no gaps in their management of the operations. The rare instance, but our favorite, is if a fire department is doing solid work, but they want to make sure that they're improving. They want to make sure that they're bringing in industry research, proven practices, that they're being very community focused, that they're utilizing all of the great skill sets of the members of their department, and they're being strategic. So those are really the 3 reasons.
So, Preet, what kind of agencies get accredited? Does every fire department in America get to be accredited or want to be accredited?
Our programs are designed and best suited for medium to large, but not huge fire departments. It is a management model that they need to implement, so they need to have enough resources to bring to bear to achieve that management model, but not be so huge that they can't turn that ship. The accreditation model, though, is something that any department, regardless of size, can utilize if they want to improve their training, if they want to improve their health and safety of their firefighters, if they wish to engage in a new area of service delivery like hazmat or technical rescue, they can access it. But our program is voluntary. We have achieved quite a bit of growth in our period, but our professional credentialing model, that actually is used by way more individuals that work in far more departments. We have 3,900 credentialed professionals across 7 different programs.
So, Preet, why not the huge departments?
The huge departments typically work in systems that are bigger than some countries and older than many parts of the United States. Their systems of politics, their system of taxation, their system of governance, they've already figured out how to do their thing extremely well because they have to. FDNY, they've been around a really, really, really long time. They have some very complex issues. The city of Los Angeles, the city of Chicago. But once you start getting into some cities that are still quite large, Houston, Atlanta, those both are accredited fire departments.
What about the small volunteer fire departments? Do they get accredited too?
We have 2 volunteer fire departments that are accredited within the United States. They are both next to medium career fire departments that are also accredited, and the people who volunteer in the volunteer departments, their day job is in the other department. Volunteer departments, much like any rural entity, which is typically where you're going to see a volunteer department, they likely have some equity of service challenges that aren't just limited to the fire services, whether it's schools, whether it's food deserts, whether it's road networks, hospital systems, even law enforcement. So you start to see, unfortunately, a world of haves and have-nots that show up. So not so much the suburbs. That is a space that we're very active in. But in the rural spaces where you see a lot of these volunteer departments, there's institutions out there that do great research on rural areas, and they will talk about a lack of services. And this is one of those.
So, Preet, let me ask you a question. If the small volunteer fire departments aren't getting accredited, should I be worried about that?
That's a tough question. The volunteer service in the US of the fire service is one of, I think, the best examples of self-resilience and taking care of your community that the US has to boast. It's a part of the tradition and heritage, and it's one that should be celebrated. The challenge is the environment, hurricanes, wildfires, deep freezes, flooding, the technology, whether it's electric vehicles or other type of lithium-ion batteries, and even the health issues related to opioid epidemic or other larger challenges. Those societal impacts are outweighing the volunteer services ability to provide service. The commitment is there, the desire is there, but that technical skill set that folks need to bring to bear didn't exist 30, 40, 50 years ago. Even the way that homes are being built, or unfortunately as homes are aging, the way that they're put together. So I would hate to say that somebody should be worried, but I think they should be aware and they should plan for how do they take care of themselves in a medical emergency, in a weather emergency, a little bit of fire safety for everybody. Make sure you've got fire alarms, make sure you've got carbon monoxide. And if you have the opportunity to build a home brand new, put some fire sprinklers in it to take care of yourself.
Well, a couple of years ago, I had Alan DeYoung on the show, and he's CEO of the Wisconsin EMS Association, WEMSA. And he said, Joanna, in some parts of the country, because EMS is not mandated by law, if you call 911, nobody will come. And that surprised the heck out of me.
I would juxtapose that to, in the fire department accreditation model, fire departments must lay out in these types of events, fire, medical, depending on the severity of the event, minor, medium, major, we will show up in this much time with this many resources to do these activities. We require that they develop that standards of cover, that they track their performance against that standards of cover. If they have a gap in their performance, that they figure out how to address it either through mitigation activities, having additional resources, but at a minimum, they're advising their city council, their county council, that they have these gaps and they may not be able to meet them. So you start seeing that for a community that wants to make sure that it's providing great schools, it might also want to make sure that it's providing great public safety and public health services. And typically the fire department ends up playing that role increasingly in cities. So this is a way for them to illustrate to their community members who might be deciding, where they want to live, what is going to be the level of service that they're going to receive.
Wow. Well, I think we had a lot to talk about when it comes to CPSE, but I want to dive into your journey. Preet, how'd you get to become CEO?
I've been the CEO for the Center for Public Safety Excellence since September 2014, so I'll be celebrating 11 years in just a few months. Immediately prior to that, I worked for the International Code Council. ICC makes the building codes that are used here in the US and increasingly abroad to ensure that buildings are safe and will withstand whatever the world has to throw at them. But in both of those, I've worked with local government. I think local government is the most responsive and nimble form of government that's out there. And that's where people live, work, play. My career actually began at the state level in California. I worked for the state assembly. I thought that after graduate school, I was going to go fix the education system in California. That was my desire. I have a minor in education. I quickly realized that politics being what they are, that you couldn't really affect a great deal of change at the state level. I then worked for the city of Anaheim. That was wonderful. So many more small and big changes that you could make at a city level that could really change the way that a community experienced their everyday. The reason I love working in associations and I adore being the CEO for CPSE is now I get to positively impact so many local governments. Rather than, had I stayed in local government, I likely would have ended up as a city manager. Maybe I would have been a city manager of 1, 2, maybe even 3 cities in my career, and would have hoped that I would have had a positive impact. But now I get to impact all of these communities positively, and that's pretty wonderful.
Preet, that's an interesting background. You were with government, local government for many years, and now you're with a national nonprofit. What's that transition like to go from, working for government to working for a nonprofit? Pretty different, I think. Was it hard?
It definitely wasn't hard because I think what it retained was this desire to make the world a better place. That mission is aligned. And I definitely have association colleagues that work in associations that serve private sector. As they've explained it to me, their work is focused on protecting the industry. Our focus at CPSE is still serving, which was the same in local government. The better part of it, though, and it's why every so often I might think about going back into government, and I, as of yet, haven't made that jump and haven't really been enticed to, we get to be more creative within not-for-profits. We think of ourselves at CPSE as a social enterprise. Our mission is one that is driven by wanting to help, but the methods that we use are no different than another business.
Oh, interesting point. What an interesting perspective that you're at the intersection of more government type entities and corporate, maybe taking advantage or partaking of the culture of both.
And obviously, association executives will be well aware of, unfortunately, some of the challenges that our industry is facing and some of the threat of even removing our tax exempt status. The great staff at the ASAE had these buttons for the Government Relations Week in February, and it was nonprofits work when government can't.
Right.
And I think that's so true.
Yeah.
As either we're able to bring the subject matter experts or we're able to offer those programs that meet a need, but just can't be functioned within government.
Wow. Well, I think that it's when government can't and where government can't.
Definitely.
Hey, speaking of ASAE, you're a new member of the ASAE board. Congratulations. Tell us about that. What an accomplishment.
Well, I would say an ASAE super fan. I have, as a member, utilized a lot of the great services. I had the opportunity for 5 years to volunteer on the research committee, finding those actionable solutions for my fellow members to address some of their biggest challenges. And as I looked at how I could continue my own professional growth, but also continue to give back to the industry, there was an opportunity to throw my name into the hat for the board, and I was selected. So I joined last August, and it's a very interesting time being on the board. Our industry is under threat, but working along with my fellow board members and supporting the great work of Michelle Mason and her staff to make sure they have what they need so that we can meet this moment is what I'm most proudest of, and have learned a lot even in doing that work over the last 8 or 9 months.
Preet, for those of us who just kind of stand on the sidelines and think, wow, board member of ASAE, what's that like? What's the time commitment like?
The time commitment, and maybe it's even the same that we might talk to our own board members about. There's meetings and there's email responses. You, as a committee member, might dedicate 4 to 6 hours per month to a committee. I'm a member of the board, not in the leadership. I dedicate the same. But the larger time is you're scanning what's going on at all times. And if and when there is an ask of the staff of the board, hey, can you help us figure out the wording for this piece that we're pushing out? Or can you give us feedback as we modify this program? You're hopefully bringing to bear all of the scanning that you've been doing over the last year to it. So on my own board, we even joke for people who were coming up from committees onto our board, we're not going to waste your time typing, right? You did that a lot as committee members. We're going to be asking you to bring your full brain. You are going to be tired because the questions are going to be different every day. The way that you provide us input, the way that we ask you to help our organization navigate or grow is going to be different every day. Where committees, the work is very palatable, like you can see the outcome of your work, but it's typically the same year over year. Board service looks very different, and it's just being able to bring your whole self to a discussion that's strategic or generative for the organization.
Wow. I'm sure they're amazing conversations. Hey, let's turn to CPSE. You've got this strategic plan, and one of the things that you talk about in the plan is being best in class for people, staff, volunteers, contractors. What does that look like?
I'm so glad we're getting into this. And just a little bit about how we at CPSE even approach our strategic plans. We ask our fire departments as part of their accreditation process to have a strategic plan and to track its implementation. Likewise, we at CPSE should do so. Prior to my joining the organization, we had never had a strategic plan. I am on our 3rd now.
Wow.
The first one, informed by customer feedback, volunteer feedback, informed by staff input, approved by the board and implemented, was we jokingly call our Fix It plan. We're now in our Grow It plan. And that's growing the organization, but also growing who we are as an organization. So it's not just about putting more numbers on the board. It's about how we approach our work, being more mature in how we address technology. But the people-focused part of it, we have 4 tenets in our current strategic plan. The first is to have a growth mindset, but not at the cost of quality. And the second is to be people-focused. Because in any given year, between our staff, our contractors, and our volunteers who actually go do the site visits for accreditation or review the portfolios for credentialing, there's 700 people that do one or many things that achieve the work of the organization. We want to make sure that whether it's a volunteer, a contractor, or staff, that they understand the expectations of their work, that they are selected based on those expectations, that they are oriented to their role, that they are trained to do the job successfully, or as the job changes, they are trained, that their work is recognized. If there are some deficiencies, that those are addressed. If they can be built out, if the deficiencies can be addressed through training or additional professional development experience is wonderful. But if not, how do we have people off board with dignity? And all of this at the same time as we're looking to the next generation and how the work, whether it's the volunteer work, the contractor roles, or even the staff work, need to change because they may not meet the needs or be attractive to the next generation. We are using some of the frameworks that are out there about being a best places to work. We've actually downloaded that certification. So we look at how to build that for our organization, whether that's transparency about work, transparency about compensation, transparency about opportunities within the organization. It's very important to us that we're looking at those human resources, people management practices that the private sector, where there's a lot of competition about how can we pull people from other jobs. There's competition for people's time, whether it's volunteering, contracting, and even for staff. So we want to make sure that we are an attractive place for people to come and volunteer contractor work.
So Preet, 700 people every year do some type of work for CPSE. How are you tracking this, and how are you celebrating them?
Today, I'd say we were doing a medium job of tracking. We are doing a medium job of celebrating.
Are you tracking this in your membership database?
Correct. Just later on this afternoon, we've engaged a volunteer management expert that is helping us bring a lot of those lessons from a human resources people management aspect into our volunteers. So I can, with a few clicks, find out who all of our volunteers are, which assignments they were given, and we have averages about how much those assignments take. We, at our annual conference and in our annual report, list the number of individuals, highlight the amount of activities they've done, and do a calculation of how many hours that would actually make up. Then we did our analysis. It was 28 and a half FTEs, but that's 600 people that are producing those 28 and a half full-time equivalents. So we're accessing their significant varied skill sets.
Right. So even if I only gave you 4 hours, you hopefully took advantage of my specific expertise when I was giving you my 4 hours.
Absolutely. So we celebrate them. We celebrate our volunteers during volunteer week. We'll have a volunteer breakfast. And every instance, I was even with one of our state consortia just this past week, I took a moment to say, hey, please raise your hand if you're one of our peer assessors or peer reviewers, and thanked them for their contributions. And every time we talk about a program, I'll ask oh, hey, who volunteered to help on that? And they raise their hand. I'll take a moment to say thank you, but then I ask for them to be a part of that discussion in talking about how it was done. We just updated our accreditation model. We had over 200 people help us update it from amongst our community, so they're part of that dialogue.
Wow, amazing. Well, I know that you've rolled out new and revised programs. Is that coming out of the strategic plan? So what are you doing that's new and different?
Out of our strategic plan that we just closed out in 2023, 2 new programs emerged. One is a new subsidiary, the CPSE Center for Innovation. We are in the early days of forming that entity. We've achieved our 501c3 status. We've got a board seated. We've got a business plan. We're now doing the fundraising work and program development work to roll that out. But the goal there is for us to address an industry-wide gap in evidence-based decision-making, to highlight the great things that our fire departments are doing and our credential professionals are doing, but be a catalyst for innovation for the industry. And, to your earlier question about those volunteer departments that don't seek accreditation, they might be able to interact with our CPSE Center for Innovation to download a guide on how to implement a best practice. We feel it's important for us as part of giving back to the industry to do just that. We also, within our main organization, have developed a new program. It's called our CPSE Community Experience. It looks and smells like a member relations committee, but it's different. Accreditation, if a department gets it, they have to renew every 5 years. And if an individual gets a credential, they have to renew every 3 years. Sometimes those departments and those individuals choose to engage with us mid-cycle, but some don't. The CPSE Community Experience is stepping in to proactively engage them mid-cycle. And it's really wonderful. We hired the best individual for that, somebody from our community. And we use the term community experience rather than member or customer experience, because a lot of this is us bringing them together for them to learn together. We've got systems that are great. We think our conference is pretty wonderful, but they're the subject matter experts. They're the ones that give it life. So we are focused on how do we very intentionally build that community for them.
I got a lot of questions here. Why a separate subsidiary? Why not just do it within the framework of CPSE? I mean, now you've got two boards, two sets of tax filings.
The reason was one of speed. Accreditation, I mentioned every 5 years, credentialing every 3 years. We have procedures, timelines, dates. It's a marathon. That's the speed of CPSE. Very predictable. We're always busy, but there's cyclicality to we're busy at this time. These documents are due 6 months before your site visit. For the CPSE Center for Innovation, we need to be able to sprint. And those two operational tempos, we believe, would have created conflicts.
Because culturally, it would have been a challenge.
Like, oh my God, the CPSE Center for Innovation, they're always demanding things. Don't they know that we've got this work that we need to do over the next 6 months? The other side, oh my God, they're so slow.
So will you have separate staff?
We will have separate staff, yes. I think we'll do some of the back of house finance IT will be common, but the boards are separate, the committees will be separate, the staff will be separate, and the products will be separate. There will obviously be an overlap based on the industry that we're working on. And there are some of our customers that might choose to engage in both, but there's some new customers that might come into the CPSE Center for Innovation that perhaps never join the other. And we're okay with that. We'd love to see a really good overlap of that Venn diagram, but we understand that that's going to take time. But really, it was the operational tempo and perhaps the cultural mismatch that could emerge from that.
Preet, where is innovation happening in your space? Is it products? Is it practice? Is it process? Is it training? Like, are there new things that firefighters are learning to use? New equipment?
Yes, yes, and yes.
Okay.
The entire environment that a firefighter finds themselves working in has not just changed, it's been obliterated, rebuilt, and restarted in the last 10 years. If we talk about what they show up to fight on a fire, the buildings are different, the cars are different, the roadways are different, the public transportation is different. That just requires them to do things in many different ways. There also is increased demands for accountability at all levels of government. So the way that the fire department needs to tell their story and justify their existence is changing. Also, there are increasing health, safety, and wellness concerns for firefighters. Awareness of mental health, the concerns about a mental health crisis, but also the opportunities to do some innovative work around how we meet this mental health crisis, that also has been. So we have seen different products, different ways of using firefighting techniques, a focus on safeguarding the firefighter and the way that that shifts their work, but also new equipment, resources. But I think the easiest way to kind of describe the shift is historically fire departments conducted public administration. Here's your community, here's your budget, do your best. Today, they're finding themselves doing public policy. How do we address the homelessness crisis in our community? How do we address the opioid addiction crisis?
The aging population that increasingly needs support.
Absolutely. How do we facilitate more housing, but at the same time make sure that it's safe? Because unfortunately, safe housing and affordable housing are becoming mutually exclusive, and we really wish that they weren't.
Wow. Preet, I could sit here and talk to you all day, but I know you're a busy lady. I got one more question for you before we go, and I hope you don't mind. May is AANHPI Heritage Month.
Yes.
You're Asian American. I'm Asian American. What does it mean to you to celebrate your heritage this month? Do you think about it?
My parents are from Punjab in India. I was actually born in Ireland, so that always gives it an interesting twist to my experience.
Wow.
I think for me, one of the core tenets of Sikhism, that's my religion, my parents' religion, predominantly from Punjab and India, there is a term called it's seva, seva, and it means to give of oneself, self-sacrifice, service to others. I think about my work, whether it was in government and even now in not-for-profits, that service mindset, the civic mindset, taking care of others, making the world a better place, giving back is really core to who I am. And it's about actively doing work. So Sikh temples, gurdwaras throughout the world, they offer free meals.
Right.
The langar to the community. You can come and eat for free, whether that temple happens to be open up every day or just on the weekends. And there is no expectation that you've tithed in any way before that. If you just need to come, if you need to bring your family, please.
And I believe anyone is welcome, right?
Anyone is welcome. We ask you cover your head. We ask you take your shoes off. But beyond that, there isn't any expectations of how you show up. The way that that food is created, it's not catered out. It is made by members of the community. It is served by members of the community. My own family will get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and help make some food. And us as kids, before we could help make the food, we were responsible for serving or bussing tables. That was so much of our work. And it's the physical act of doing that work that is in service of others. That's so core to who I am.
And that's a very Sikh principle, this concept of seva.
Yes. So that's for me something that's central to who I am, but definitely something I enjoy recognizing this month and celebrating.
Preet, maybe you could share with our listeners, and I'll put it in the show notes, maybe just a link to a page that explains what seva is and how it sounds like it influences every part of you because you're Sikh American.
I think it really does. And I even think about my siblings. The three of them, they work in schools, 2 vice principals, 1 education counselor at a high school in South Central LA. We could use our collective brains and I think hard work, and we could have worked in spaces that, frankly, we might work a whole lot less and make a whole lot more. That was never an expectation. The expectation was about doing something that helps somebody else. And if your work is part of that, that's even more important.
Well, what a wonderful way to honor that value through your work. So it's really something that you celebrate at home and at the office. This idea that you're serving.
Yes.
Preet, this was an amazing interview. You'll have to come back because it sounds like this next strategic plan is going to lead you to do more amazing things. So please come back next year.
I would love it. It would be great. Thanks so much, Joanna.
Thanks for listening to Associations Thrive. We're so glad to have you here. You know, my personal mission and the mission of my company, Matrix Group International, is to help associations and nonprofits increase membership, generate revenue, and thrive in the digital space. I want to hear stories of how your organization is thriving in today's challenging landscape. Please apply to be on my show by going to podcast.matrixgroup.net. By the way, do you need help with a digital initiative? Maybe it's a website redesign, a new membership database, or a hybrid meeting that you're planning. I'd love to connect with you. Please visit the Matrix Group website at matrixgroup.net. Thanks again for listening to this week's episode of Associations Thrive. Don't forget to subscribe to the show, leave a 5-star rating, post a comment, and share it with your colleagues and friends. Bye!